Hey guys, Deva here. It's been a while. Hope you all are doing good in these horrible times with the pandemics and all other problems going on. I'm glad you all enjoyed our duo KT run. It's my biggest speedrun project, or at least in the top 3. Since the run has hundreds of hidden mechanics and there is probably a lot of open questions of what is even going on, me and Retro decided to cover a full breakdown on the run. I think it's a really interesting behind the scenes insight. I will cover everything that's going on in the run, but not the strategy changes we made during the 3 weeks, cause it will take another 10 hours of explanation. So I'm gonna give you as much info as possible of what we did and how we did on the run before it. And as I said, I'm really glad you guys enjoyed Iceborne runs, because that's where I'm gonna be for at least the next year, maybe the next 2 years till Monster Hunter 6, until Rise Ultimate is better than Rise, because Rise was fun and all, but for me personally it died down really hard after the first 3 months. It got boring for me personally again. This is my opinion. You may still enjoy it, I don't. A few basic things you should know before I start. Kulftaroth in Duo has 72k HP, but also has HP locks in each area, meaning you can't deal any more damage than a specific amount till she switches the area. Just like Fatalis and a few other monsters that you simply can't kill because they'll lock at some percentage of HP until they go to the next area or until they do a specific ultimate attack and so on. Your HP scaling for 2 players is the most horrible since, like any other in the game, since each of us had to do technically 36k damage, while on 4 player she has only double the solo HP, which is 108k, so every player of the 4 doing only 27k. So we deal 20,000 more damage in 8 seconds than the current 4 player world record melee run. In Area 1 she lives at 70% HP and below, but locks at 65% HP, which makes it not possible to kill her in Area 1. In Area 2 she lives at 40% or below and caps at 35% HP, sometimes 33, 34. The last hit will go over the cap if it wasn't capped already. The last 35% HP are in Area 3 and can be drained all at once till she dies. I will explain the builds throughout the video and why we use certain skills like Stealth or Intimidator and so on. But roughly explained, we ended up both with Frostcraft builds since there is a lot of sheathing sequences and we really need the burst damage. I used Raw Dual Blades over Elemental because of the heroic scaling, but what made them better than Elemental is KT's super high raw hit zones. So yeah, let's jump straight into the breakdown, and I promise you, you will be absolutely mind blown at the end of the explanation, because every single action and frame in the run will lead to a single calculated moment, and you will understand why. So I just love sharing this information because I think it's a waste to just upload a run which 99.99%, if not 100% of the people that watch won't understand even what's going on and leave again. Alright, so let's start off with pre-Area 1. So what happens before we start fighting here? As soon as we spawn, we both put on the Assassin's Mantle on to take the full effect of its ability. It speeds up every motion of the player except attacks. You slide faster, you run faster, and you climb faster. Since a player starts with still acceleration, it's almost wasting 0 time to put the mantle on. You will engage Kulftaroth 6 seconds faster than running to here without a mantle. This is pretty huge. Also, we couldn't think of a better mantle to use that saves more than 6 seconds, since we're already capping the HP anyway in Area 1 and 2. On the slide, you have to be careful to not touch any wall and stay perfectly in the middle of the slide, else you will slow down and cause a time loss. I was taking a seat after jumping off the slide to lose 0 time and powdering while falling so they don't waste any consumption time. We ended up dropping the 1 buff since it wasted 1 second of engage time. Engage time is basically when the monster sees you, when the fight starts. This of course leads to a faster or slower time, depending when you start the fight. And the damage buff didn't compensate for the 1 second loss. Besides of that, as mentioned earlier, we managed to cap your HP on every area just barely. So this was fine, we didn't need that extra damage from the powder. And we will use it in another dead spot in the run, which you will see later. Now, we run as fast as possible to here, and the engage time can vary about 2 seconds depending on when she notices us. This is a bit RNG. Well, it actually is RNG. This run is an early 27 seconds notice, but our optimal runs were low 26 seconds. So here we have almost a second wasted, but regardless of how frame perfect and RNG perfect this run is, having such small RNG layers on top, could take like 200 extra hours to have a same performance run with just 1 second earlier engage, because you literally will need the same perfect run. I'm drinking dash juice, which is giving dual blades a lot of more comfort, since we have to run long distances and DPS for a long time as well. I have one white range in my mental, so retro gets also slightly of its effect, and he also needed it because he will do some tenderizes and a lot of clutching afterwards, and without the dash juice it mostly wouldn't work. And here we are already in the first AI farm, 1 out of 3 main AI attacks, which all lead into an instant reset if it doesn't happen as we want, or basically to get the most optimal time. This is the fastest attack and way to proc heroics. If she doesn't do this attack, we just restart the quest. Thankfully, this attack is actually very common. It's about 30% of the time, depending on our position. We have mastered our position to trigger this AI most of the time. Our defense is just enough calculated, so if we survive this attack with 1 HP and the Fireblight taking care of the recoverable health, which burns first before you lose your actual green HP left. That's why you have 1 HP left and you don't die. It keeps burning your recoverable health. Heroics is a skill that boosts your raw damage by 35% if your HP is below 10%, or 35% on armor heroics. We sadly couldn't use armor heroics because of Frostcraft, so we can't use the 2-piece Fatalis. And it's the biggest damage boost in the game, but only efficient if you actually can do it without to lose any time activating it, such as here in the run. Rockset is godsend for heroics since the player gets no knockback, and with calculated defense you stay perfectly at that range from 1 to 10% HP. Like heroics actually in runs, like even if it takes you like 10 seconds to activate heroics, it's definitely not worth activating. That's how tight it is. You have to activate it with no time loss, instead 1 attack heroics. We also don't have to use bombs to get rid of the recoverable health, since as I said before, the Fire Blight gets rid of it. And with help of 1 blight resistance in the mental, it reduces the blight timer just enough to stay perfectly below 10% HP. Alright, so area 1 finally starts, and here she has 72k 360 HP. Retro clutches on the head, turns here once and me on the foreleg to tenderize it, which is the best row in elemental hit zone area 1, meaning she takes there the most damage, but it's also for other reasons important. Her foreleg has a threshold of 5360. Monsters have mechanics on the legs to either trip, clagger or flinch. KT's first threshold causes a flinch and the second one a leg trip, but we found a way to skip the leg trip and the flinch since they aren't necessary in area 1 to reach the damage cap or HP cap, whatever, and saving the leg trip for later. We realized that getting the leg trip is just over damaging here in that area, wasting time while we already hitting the HP cap anyway. So we didn't need any additional CC there. CC is crowd control, basically meaning any form of controlling the monsters, such as leg trips, KOs, paralysis, whatever. It's called CC. Any part that's tenderized will also take part damage from the wallbang, which helps bring the leg threshold down. So the leg is already 3600 HP after the first wallbang, and I sheath my weapon to recover Frostcraft and reposition to her leg, because burst damage is here really important and also need perfect positioning and early pre-blade dancing mid-air to get the threshold down to 0 and try to get every single hit on them, to override it while she's still in her immunity frames. This causes to skip the flinch, and the next threshold pass will be a clagger instead of a leg trip. Monsters have immunity animations where they can't be CC'd. For example, the wallbang recovery animation in this case. My first blade dance does roughly about 1400 damage, and Retro is getting already on the head for the second wallbang, which again damages the foreleg for about 1.4k and bringing the threshold down to 800. Now it's incredibly tight and just enough damage with Frostcraft and heroics to override the threshold at this exact few frames of her shaking recovery animation and skipping the flinch. So basically what happened here, her leg has 5k HP, brought it down to 0 and started again from 5000 counting down without her flinching, because all this happened while she was in the immunity frames of the wallbang. At this point the threshold has been reset to 5.3k, and depending on if we have the Palico attack boost or not, we will be somewhere between 4k and 5k when my blade dance finishes. Also it's depending on the crit RNG, since the dual blades have about 85% affinity. It can vary a lot, but at this point it's not really relevant anymore, because Retro has enough damage to reach the second threshold with only a 9-fold from me, and then I sheath in, I use a smoke bomb with the skill Stealth, so she loses instantly sight of us, and we have enough time to work on the second threshold to get the Clagger. Here you can also see the Fireblade goes off and we get a nice damage boost from Coalescence too. I do only a 9-fold and then wait for Retro to do his last hit, so I don't flinch it before it finishes his combo. Sometimes I added here 1 or 2 extra hits if I had time, or if no Palico attack boost was active. His last hit of the hammer combo is more than enough to reach the threshold and the Clagger, but we still wanna have make sure her HP is kept in this area. She still hasn't seen us at this point, which means we have a free engage roar scheduled when she sees us again, basically after the Clagger. I'm doing a 9-fold plus 1 extra hit and extending the Clagger while I'm buying enough time for Retro to finish his Big Bang combo, so we get some extra damage off, and I do another Blade Dance with Recover Frostgrave Gouge slightly before Retro resets again the threshold. So that 9-fold and 1 hit was real important, like that 1 hit I did after the 6-fold. So this is buying Retro time to get closer to the finisher of his combo, because if I clutched earlier, I will be basically done with my Blade Dance before Retro reset the threshold, and then we will be left with a super high threshold for me alone to prepare, which I won't be able to make it. Like, I can't do myself in 2 Blade Dances 5k damage. The last hit of the Big Bang resets the threshold finally, and now it's my job to quickly reposition to where her leg will be and do an preemptively a 9-fold into Blade Dance, which is calculated to leave your leg threshold around 500 to 1000 HP. So me extending the leg always at the same time will give us always the exact same results and calculations to not accidentally over damage and tripped here. Of course it happened a few times, but it was 90-95% accurate most of the time. While I did that, Retro is tenderizing the head for area 2, but at the same time building up KO for area 3. The KO build-up is the most complicated thing in this run, since every single hit and every single combo counts towards getting the exact frame perfect KO later on the last hit of the area 3 leg trip. So it's literally calculated down to single digit numbers, but Retro will explain after my breakdown his point of view and why he did what he did and how much KO value each hit does, and calculated it that way, including the natural decay per second, having it perfectly set up for area 3 to get it on the last hit of the Big Bang combo, which does only about 20 KO. You guys need to understand how astronomically insane this is calculated and why it took ages with build making, optimizing, and finding the best script possible to do the best combos possible to make this work, but also dealing the most efficient damage possible, because we don't want to drop damage to make the run more comfortable and easier and be 3 seconds slower. No, we wanted this to be the most perfect duo run in existence, which by far it is, because it's probably the only run that exists that can only go 1 or 2 seconds faster with like insanely astronomical star RNG, whatever. Could take another 1000 hours to get 2 seconds faster. But as I said, please watch all the way to the end. Retro will go more in depth to his point of view and explain some really cool things that may even help you as a Hammer player sorry, to get a better understanding of Hammer. And yeah, At this point, Kulftaroth has between 67% HP and 70% HP, depending on crit RNG or attack buff from Palico. Retro sadly wasn't getting my attack Palico buff 90% of the time. We have no idea what causes it, and it wasn't distance related, we confirmed that. It was really frustrating not having an idea why he isn't getting the attack Palico buff even though standing next to me. It must be some coding error from the devs. So yeah, leaving here at that percentage of HP, our script has a perfectly optimal DPS without over damaging here even by 1% in this area, so we don't even waste a second doing more damage than needed. She releases and heads towards area 2. I use a ration to fill up my stamina, cancel the animation with a roll and quickly clutch on her leg to be at the gate as early as possible. This is really important for having a quick area 2 boulder AI. Retro does here another tenderize on the head to get rid of the last 2% HP left for this area, but also builds up calculated KO for later on. He also uses a poison bomb to prepare the threshold for area 3. So we finally made it to area 2. We have to always be careful to not get stepped on. We literally died about 500, maybe 1000 times just by her chip damage on her forelegs. By getting stepped on, which is super annoying. We found out that being in front of her and walking at this exact pixels of this route, slightly right of the fire pool, will mostly trigger her to keep running and not doing an early attack like a fire breath attack from far away. This is the second AI farm we have in the run. This pattern is the fastest possible way to get the boulder with 0 time wasted. Now, if the lava pool is active here, which again is RNG, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, the run will be also over since it causes us to make a different route or damages your right foreleg and resets threshold, meaning we can't trip here anymore in area 3. This may be the most annoying part of the run. And yeah, we also needed exactly this pattern, what you see in the video. After a week of optimization, Retro found out the perfect position and combo to get the most optimal DPS out, but also built the KO just enough up. I do my 9-fold into 3 demon dances, and since it's a boulder drop, her horn will lock at 1 HP threshold, so it will break with any amount of damage after she gets up, basically after getting out of that immunity frames, because monsters have on boulder knockdowns immunity frames. This means they cannot be paralyzed, they cannot be done anything to them. And here is a side note, that's how almost all clips of monsters are made, knocking them down, getting a dunk or whatever. People build it up in a lock animation and then need to do only 1 single damage whenever, and flex a super cool Shoryuken knockout on Twitter. It's literally a scam, like all those 1-hit dunk you see. Like sometimes it happens randomly, but 99% of them are scams. With scams I mean like people, it's not a real scam. People have knowledge about the game. They know Fatalis head can't break during a down, like a ballistic down or whatever. So Fatalis head will be at 1% HP, and then you see the guys doing an uppercut to his head. Oh my god, I broke his head with a stone or with an uppercut. Well, that's, yeah. It was at 1% HP, so you know it's gonna happen. It's nothing amazing. Back to the video. This part was very hard to position correctly, also to not get upswinged by Retro, because for some reason the devs thought it's a good idea to add friendly fire in PvE games and having absolute no permanent protection for it. Rocksteady helps, but Rocksteady is not permanent. Flinch free doesn't work for upswings. You have no idea how many times I was sent flying here. We ended up optimizing that much to have at least Rocksteady still on till his first upswing combo ends, and this nullified almost all upswings. We also have to be on the left side to not accidentally get the damage on the right foreleg, so you can see I can't really avoid getting upswinged unless I'm standing enough far left of him, which will also lead to attacking the foreleg, the left foreleg instead of the horns. So this was a really bad situation until, yeah, we actually managed to keep Rocksteady till this area. But yeah, this area is literally the worst. The skill intimidator was helping us so the gadgets don't see us and kill us while we attack KT. We can't afford to have a 1 out of 100 runs to be ruined by gadgets, since we have only 10% HP and literally anything kills you. Like the gadgets just touch you or just smell you and you just die. But yeah, we actually ended up having to drop it because we were short by 1 to 2% damage in area 3 to get the kill before she does her ultimate. So we fit another 1 skill in, which I will explain later, which ended up getting me doing 2% more damage. When she gets up, I'm sharpening to get back to purple, and as you see, the handicraft, like the hits are exactly calculated for this run to just go to white after my combo ends. Sometimes 3 hits before. It was mostly 3 hits before, but that's no big issue since we kept anyway. And Retro is purposely hitting the air 2 times so he can get the last strong combo hit on the horns. This is damage efficient, but also specified for the KO threshold. A small hit would also break them, but deal much less damage and much less KO. She always has 1 attack or 1 slide run after she is ready to leave, which means we are right now below 40% HP, but at this point we usually have her around 37% HP. Now we don't lose any time, me using the demon powder but also poisoning here, so we have here poison in area 3. A poison is 1.5k damage on KT, about that, but it's ticking 80, I think every 2 seconds or something, I don't remember. However, yeah, it ticks every few seconds, so we don't take effect of the full 1.5k damage, we get about 1k damage from the poison in area 3. Retro does a final KO build up on the head with a tenderizing attack. Any slight deviation or delay by a few seconds on this run does not get us the KO in area 3 and means we have to abandon because she will fury and be on kill build there. As she melts to the gate, her leg threshold is going to be locked at 1. So when I left her arm in area 1 somewhere between 200 and 700, it's her time to do as much damage as possible since it will stay anyway at 1 threshold and guarantee a 1 hit trip in area 3. This and Retro's Tenderize got rid of the last 2 to 3% HP on this area, and now she has only 35% HP left. This means she's perfectly prepped for area 3, no over damaging, no under damaging, everything goes as planned. We're clutching on here to not get slowed down by the lava slide, but also to get her turn instantly in area 3 so she doesn't walk all the way back, because when she does this, she usually does her fury attack. Slapping the tail is more stamina friendly than letting it drain. Most of the attacks were fine here since she turned anyway always around when you were at the tail. This area is all about having the perfect execution of combos and thresholds in area 1 and 2. If the KO threshold was just off by 20, which is a tiny hit, it will fail the run. So we jump early enough to not die, and then it's my job to get the leg trip as fast as possible. Thankfully it was a decent build up to take only 1 hit, but even if it was at like 300 it will take like 5 hits, which is still the same attack. The Arc Demon Mode spin will be enough to get the remaining threshold, so there is not much really RNG here whether it was 1 HP or 200, 300. And yeah, she did at least a decent move also. You probably know that Kulf does in this area her Fury attack, where she's unkillable, the big speeding attack on her 2 legs, speeding fire attack, sometimes instantly, sometimes after 1 or 2 attacks. Our goal was to skip this because it wastes time and we can have only access to the back legs, which obviously not as much damage as your head. It can indeed be used as free CC for 4-player runs, since you don't need that much damage as a whole leg trip and a KO, but not in a duo. We really wouldn't have the damage to kill here, when 4 players barely kill it in Fury plus a KO or Fury plus a leg trip. Now it's all about being able to do your last 35% HP in the down. The Palico plays the attack buff perfectly, and thanks to God we also got the blast proc from it during the down, which is 600 extra damage, and this also saved the run. And now the most amazing part about the run. The fucking exact frame it tries to get up, Retro frame perfect combo and calculated KO during the whole run gets the KO. The last hit of the Big Bang does literally only about 20 KO. I don't exact the numbers, Retro will tell you better later, 21, 25, I don't know. If you had 20 less than required, it wouldn't happen. If you had 20 too much, it will KO earlier, meaning the leg trip will cut short, leading to Retro Miss's final hit, and me not being able to finish all my Blade Dance combos. So we won't have enough time to kill her before she gets up from the KO. Because as I mentioned earlier, once she gets up, she does the unstoppable move. And there is also KO decay. The KO went down every few seconds during the run. So you have to understand how precise we had to calculate it, like doing that amount of threshold, but also including the amount of decay the KO will go down. Because thresholds, like everything that's not part threshold, like poison, paralyzed, sleep, all those thresholds go down during the run every 5 seconds, I think, like by a few amount. And yeah, this was all inside that calculated. Here you see I delay my Blade Dance for 1 second to not hear the air, because usually that's when he got always the KO. And yeah, I delayed to not hit the air with my Blade Dance. Maybe it will be more efficient if I turned around and did damage to their arms, but that will be also less damage. Maybe the damage won't be enough there. Instead of losing 1 second, we don't know. It probably will be about the same. Even though I hate Marathon Runners since it's not as good as Stamina Surge and Constitution Casual Hunt, here it was mandatory since it prevented me going out of Demon Mode, which would have costed us the run. So yeah, that's where we dropped 1 point of Stealth and 3 points of Intimidator. I needed the Marathon Runner, Retro needed a thing, I don't remember, a little bit of more attack or handicraft, something like that. And of course, we just barely kill her while she's getting up to do her Unstoppable Fury attack, where her HP will lock at 1. This is definitely one of my top 3 favorite and hardest runs I ever did, if not the hardest. Just as our Fatalis Sub 3 run. This one is actually much harder. Yeah, it was. This was very painful, but also fun experience to optimize step by step, area by area, to find the most efficient strategy possible. Even though GS and SNS are both much stronger, our main weapons luckily had a very good, if not perfect, synergy, and we made the best out of it. Yeah, with that said, I'll give you to Retro, who is going to give you a precise explanation of his gameplay, his build, every single combo he did, how much KO every single hit did, build up, and why he chooses the combos he doesn't, blah blah. Yeah, alright, so that was it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed my part, and now here comes Retro's part.
Hey guys, Retro here. So Deva already went over the run in detail, but what I'm going to do is talk about my role and the significance of hammer balancing. Basically, hammer is one big balancing act, and it's important to keep in mind 2 things: dealing damage and the KO that you inevitably deal cannot avoid. So sit back, relax, and hopefully I can make some sense out of all of this. So I've played this game enough to roughly have an idea of what I want to do before I even start practicing for a run. I'll give you a quick example as to what I mean. The training area. Let's go to the poll. So we do 1 combo, right? And we get a damage number and a KO value. Now if we do roughly in the same amount of time a different combo, in this case Big Bang, we get a higher damage number but a much lower KO value. So this is why Hammer has one of the most diverse toolkits in the game. What I mean by this is that none of the moves in the Hammer's toolkit are useless. None of them. Like Greatsword, for example, or most other weapons have moves you never do, or speedrunners never do in runs because they don't give any value. And this is just not the case for Hammer. It fully depends on the situation, and it fully depends on the monster and what you're trying to do. And understanding these 2 things is how to fully optimize Hammer gameplay. On a side note, I'll ask Deva to link in the description this graph. This graph basically shows what Iceborne hammer looks like, and it was made by Moon Bunny and Death Scream. So huge shout out to them. So looking at this KT run, if we pretend that KT's head is the pole, then we want to give it the same treatment. We want to make sure that our damage is extended and our KO comes at a precise point. I've dubbed this KO extending. Now, with KO extensions, what you want to primarily do is use, like we do in this run, other resources that are available to you, like the rock drop in area 2 and the area transitions from area 1 to 2 and from area 2 to 3, which are essentially free openings for me to not only deal damage but apply KO. And what this allows me to do is to use less slugger in my set, do higher damage inflicting combos, and extend the KO to where we need it. For this run, I ended up using a Slugger 3 set, which was a blessing because that allowed me to use Frostcraft as well. And the burst damage, without it, we wouldn't have had the DPS needed to clear in 3 minutes. For this rock drop down, I also wanted to capitalize on the fact that the horn HP caps at 1, which means that the very second that it is out of an uninterruptible animation, the smallest amount of damage would break the horns, which meant that I should be the one to do that. Because as far as single hit damage is concerned, I do the most here. Also, as a fun fact, KT's horn break overrides KO. So assuming in a hypothetical situation that our KO threshold was at 1 and the horn break was also at 1, and you dealt an impact type damage to the head, the horns will break and she will not KO. At this point in the run, our hands are shaking and our hearts are beating 100 miles an hour. From me, if I miss anything, then the KO won't happen and we'll miss the run. Everything has boiled down to this moment. And finally, after about 3 weeks, we get the time that we wanted. KO extension hammer is probably my favorite way to play hammer. Now, it should be said that KO extending versus aerial versus just standard Unga Bunga hammer is situational. Not every monster can be KO extended. It depends on the environment, and it depends on the monster's HP, and it depends on the KO thresholds. But whenever possible, KO extension hammer is, in my opinion, the highest damage hammer in Iceborne. And personally, also the most fun to play. I wish I could go more in depth, but that would definitely have to be in a separate, completely dedicated video to optimizing hammer gameplay. I hope that everything I've said made sense and it didn't just feel like a ramble. I had a lot of fun doing this run, so thank you, Deva, and who knows, maybe we'll run something else next. Thanks, guys.